Hello and welcome to Creative Sparkle. My name's Holly and today we're doing an art journal prompt list. So grab your art supplies and let's get crafting. Thank you for joining me today. So I'm working in a normal art journal today. So the first prompt that we're going to be working with is prime your page with gesso if needed. So if you're working in a normal art journal page, you don't need to necessarily prime the page. I just wanted to make sure that my page is ready for anything that we're going to be working with, because the paper isn't sketchbook paper rather than mixed media paper, so let's just get it prepared. So once that's dried, we'll move on to prompt number 2, which is to use 2 or 3 colours for the background to creating coloured stripes. So I've started with this baby blue colour and I'm just going to paint the full background in this colour, and then I'm going to use masking tape just to create the stripes and put them over the page, and then I'm going to be using the flesh colour and paint that over the top so that we have the stripes. Obviously, if you prefer to just paint the stripes directly on the page or use the colours to create stripes themselves rather than doing the full background like I've done, whatever you feel is more suitable for your page, in 2 or 3 colours like the prompt said. So once you're happy with your stripes and they've dried, we'll move on to prompt number 3, which is to choose one simple shape and add different sizes over the background. So I've chosen to use the same colour that I used in the baby blue, and I'm just going to be adding circles to the background. So I'm finding different shapes that will create a circle, and different sizes should I say, and I'm just going to print them around the page to try and create an interesting background. So moving on to prompt number 4 is add stitches to your page. So I decided to use my sewing machine to add stitches. Obviously you can hand sew them if you prefer, and I've chosen this colour thread, and I'm just going to pop it into the sewing machine and do a zigzag sew through, and I'll do that over the page in several places as you can see here. So once I've finished that, I'm just going to put some Mod Podge on each ends of the sewed parts just so that we can make sure that they don't move around, and then I'll cut the excess thread off as well. So once you're happy with those stitches, we'll move on to prompt number 5, which is to add modelling paste through a stencil or 2. I did actually just choose the one stencil to use, and I'm going to be using some transparent paste in gloss, and I'm going to choose a red and a black paint just to make a dark red colour, and then add it to the modelling paste just so that we've got a nice colour to put through those. So I'm going to use a stencil that is mainly circles, and I'm just going to print them onto the background where I can. I previously think I should have used maybe a bit more of the texture paste, because once using it on through the stencils it was quite difficult to get it to come through without smearing all over the place, so I did have to do a bit of cleaning up on that, but in the end it turned out alright. So once the stencil parts have dried, we'll move on to prompt number 6, which is to use paint to create a focal image for the page. So I've chosen to use these dress stamps, and I'm just going to use one of them, the one in the middle there, and I'm going to stamp it with my stamping platform onto a piece of white card in black archival ink, and then I'm going to use some acrylic paints with the same colours that I used for the circles stencils, and I'll paint the dress in a dark red colour and use the flesh colour that I used for the background just for the top of the mannequin there. And once I finish painting it, I keep it on the stamping platform so that I can re-stamp the stamp afterwards, so it doesn't matter if I've covered any of the lines up. So the little stand for the mannequin that you can see here, I decided to print that directly onto the page, so I'm just using that same black archival ink to stamp it onto the page, and then I've got something for the dress to sit on. So once that's all stuck down, we'll move on to prompt number 7, which is to add 3 or 5 pieces of ephemera around the focal image. So I've chosen to stick with the same colour scheme, and there are 5 pieces of ephemera that I'll be adding, mostly stickers and bits and bobs that I have in my stash. And unfortunately I didn't manage to record it all, nor the next step, but I'll tell you what the next step is. So prompt number 8 is to add string or twine connecting or leading to each piece of ephemera from the focal image, and I chose to use some embroidery thread in that same dark red colour that is based around the page. So that's those 2 steps there done. So prompt number 9 would be to add a title or word with typography that implies stitches. So I have these polka doodles, sayings here, or sentiments rather, and I was going to do the 2 of them, but I decided to just go with the one which says live, and I've chosen to use this cardstock in a dark red just so that I've got some backing to put it on. So I'll cut that out and stick it onto some red backing, and then have a nice outline for that as well, and then I'll get that stuck down on the page. So once you're happy with the location of the title, move on to the final step, which is to add splashes or dots to finish. So I didn't want to add splashes onto my page because I thought it looked quite organised and delightful. So I decided to use a Sharpie pen just to add dots instead, which is fine because it's part of the prompt. So I'm just using a red Sharpie and adding dots around the page just so that it adds interest. So I hope you enjoyed today's page. That is the end of it. So I'll put some pictures at the end and the full list will be at the end of the video as usual. If you do decide to take part in the prompt list, please do tag me on Instagram with the hashtag #SparklePrompts, and I will see you next time where we will turn your creative spark into creative sparkle. Thanks, bye.